and welcome back to Race Recap. My name is Jackson. Last weekend we had the IMSA series racing on the streets of Long Beach with the DPI cars, the GTD cars, and the GTD Pro cars. No LMP cars this weekend. Now it also called for a shorter and not as many cars in this race because, of course, the first two races, Daytona and Sebring, were both endurance races, which are the long endurance 12-hour, 24-hour races with multiple drivers, and they each just had two drivers to each car. Now, before I begin, I mentioned I didn't have the track description for the Formula 1 video, so here it is right here. Now, I actually have a comparison. I mentioned that it was newly shaped. This is the 2022 shape of Albert Park in Australia. And you'll notice the difference between this and the 2021. It's in sector number 2. They took out two corners right there, turns 9 and 10 over here in 21, and replaced it with just a long swooping S-turn into turns now 9 and 11, which have moved to sector 3. Okay, and also real quick in Formula 1, this weekend, I forgot to mention it in Amelia, it's going to be a sprint race on Saturday. I'll explain the rules for that once we get to it, but that video will be coming out this Saturday, sprint race for Amelia. Now, the track description for Long Beach, which was where the Indy cars were at last video, and where the IMSA series is at this weekend as well, last weekend. So here it is. It's a street course, so nothing like a racetrack would be. Now this is the front straightaway by the checkered flag, and the pit road is right here. And in the turn number 1, it's a hard turn, and then you'll go around the fountain into Toyota turn, as they call it. And I really like the fountain. You just go whoop right around the fountain in turns 2 and 3. And if you remember in the IndyCar video, Simon Pagino actually got high-sided on the flowers that surround that fountain. So very interesting. Then you do a couple more turns and go down a long back straightaway. And then lastly, this part right here, it's very troublesome. It's the chicane that ends off the track. It's a hairpin turn, basically, to go back onto the front straightaway. And that gave a lot of drivers in both races at Long Beach lots of trouble. Now the race, this was a shorter race, actually part of the Sprint Cup Challenge, 2 races here in Canada that GTD does, another mini race within the whole race. So it was 100 minutes. The first incident was brought out when the 01 Cadillac of Sebastian Bourdais and Ringer van der Zande, Bourdais was in the car for the start of this race. They have had some unlucky events this year. Of course, at Rolex 24, they were out with mechanical issues. They were able to finish the race, but not a chance for win. And last week, or a few weekends ago in Sebring, they were out on lap 1 with problems under the hood. So not very good so far for the Cadillac. But they turned it around by getting a pole position at Long Beach. But then Sebastian Bourdais gave it all away, though, when he came in that troublesome hairpin turn and just overshot it. And I made a little contact with the outside wall, but the problem was he couldn't find reverse quick enough before everyone else in the DPI class got around him for the lead. And then the next incident was when Robert Foley and the experienced number 96 crew, his teammate Bill Arbolin and GTD and the BMW they overshot the turn, but were able to loop it around and not lose too many spots. And then Tristan Nunez, who came in the DPI number 31 Cadillac, he actually overshot turn number 1 because his engine shut on and off. Luckily, they didn't have these issues later on throughout the race and were able to continue on. Then there was no caution when the 57, it was actually a Mercedes AMG and GTD. It was Philip Ellis in the car at this time. He made the same mistake that Bourdais did by overshooting the hairpin turn and going into the outside wall. Again, not too much damage, just had a little trouble finding reverse. And actually, while this was happening, Bourdais was making a hard charge through the field, and he actually got all the way up to first at one point and was able to keep it there before the first driver change when Ringer van der Zande got into the car. And then the first full course caution was for debris on track. On that restart, the 27, driven by Maximilian Martin and GTD, it was the Heart of Racing Aston Martin. He had a tire go down after contact a few corners earlier. It was the right rear, and he just went straight on into the outside wall hard, ending his day. And then the third and final full course caution was brought out when Stephen McLear and another Mercedes AMG and GTD, he actually caught the tire wall, and that did not end his day, but it left some pretty big damage and a full course caution. And then there was no caution in the hairpin turn where Daytona 500 winner, the 16 Porsche, it was Jan Halen in the car this time, and GTD spun out after a lot of contact. And then Rick Ware Racing, the NASCAR team and also IndyCar team, he's now moved to IMSA as well. And Ryan Eversley was in the car, and the Acura is what they drive, an Acura NXX. He was having a pretty good run, solidly in the top 5, but he overshot the turn and had some contact with the tire wall. He lost a lot of position, but did not have too much damage. And then lastly, there was no caution when the two DBI cars were battling out for third while Chip Ganassi was 1-2 in the 01 and 02. It was Pippo Durrani on the outside in the hairpin, and Oliver Jarvis in the number 60 Acura was trying to make a late move. They both made contact, which allowed the Mustang sampling number 5 Cadillac to slip on through and be able to get into third place. But the overall winners with a great comeback were the 0-1 of Sebastian Bourdais and his teammate Ringer van der Zande in DPI. In GTD Pro, it was the Heart of Racing. One of their cars in GTV, that was Martin, he got into the wall, but his teammate in GTD Pro, Ross Gunn and Alex Rivieras, they won the race for GTD Pro. And then lastly, in GTD class, it was the one of Brian Sellers and Madison Snow in the BMW. Well, that's all for race recap. Come join us in a little less than 3 weeks when the IMSA series has all the classes except the LMP3s. They're racing at one of my favorite tracks in Monterey, California. That's Laguna Seca.